Welcome to Layer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. And on today's episode, let's discuss Motorhead, the studio albums from 1977 to 1987. I'm going to go through each record, talk about it a little bit, give you my favorite songs from that album, and then at the end I will do a ranking of the records. I first heard Motorhead on college radio. I've talked about how when I first got into metal, there were a couple college radio stations that had metal shows. One of them out of Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, WQSU, and it seemed like they had a metal show every night, and they used to play a lot of Motorhead. And I remember Motorhead jumping out at me, standing out to me, because they had this loud, fast, aggressive, slightly dirty sound to them, a little bit loose, and Lemmy's great gravelly voice. The songs were great, and they felt different to me than Priest and Maiden, and except that who I was also hearing, because they didn't have that sort of medieval gothic-y classical tone that sometimes Priest and Maiden have. Motorhead was just a lot more straightforward, and as Lemmy likes to say, Motorhead is not a metal band, they are a rock and roll band, and I sort of understand where he's coming from, and that is Lemmy's influences. And of course, you know, Motorhead, Lemmy, he's just this legendary heavy metal figure. When you think of heavy metal, he's one of the guys you think of, just a totally unique character and awesome and dearly missed person in the metal scene. All right, Motorhead, they're formed in 1975 when Lemmy gets fired from Hawkwind. Hawkwind is kind of space rock band. Lemmy gets fired for, as he puts it, not doing the right drugs. He had a song written for them called Motorhead. He leaves, starts his own band, calls the band Motorhead. At that time, it has Larry Wallace on guitar, who had come from a band called Pink Fairies, and Lucas Fox on drums. In 1975, United Artists sends them in to record an album that United Artists then hears it and goes, "We're not releasing this." While they're in there, they deem that Lucas Fox isn't up to the job, so Phil "Filthy Animal" Taylor comes in, and not too long after that, they are briefly a four-piece. Fast Eddie Clarke comes in, Larry Wallace decides to leave, and now we have the classic era lineup of Lemmy, Phil Taylor on drums, and Fast Eddie Clarke on guitar. The band can't get a break. They're about ready to break up. They decide to do one last gig. Lemmy talks someone at Chiswick Records into recording it for posterity's sake. Chiswick doesn't bring the right equipment or something, or they don't record it, so as a sort of a consolation, they say, "Hey, we'll let you go into the studio and record a single." They go in with 2 days, record a full album. Chiswick gives them a little bit of extra time to finish things up, and we get the 1977 self-titled Motorhead album. It's the only album that would be released on Chiswick Records. It's produced by Speedy Kane. Very live, very raw. To me, that's sort of the charm of this record. I always liked this record for its raw, kind of aggressive, them just playing live feel. Songs I really like on this one are the title track and band's theme song, if you will, Motorhead. I think that's great. I've always loved Iron Horse, Born to Lose. I love Lemmy's melody on that. Lemmy, for as much of a rough, sort of gravelly voice he has a lot of range to his voice, and I always thought he had a lot of great melodies. This is an example of one of them. White Line Fever is cool, and I always dug The Watcher. All right, then they go 1979 to release Overkill. This is the first with Bronze Records. It's produced by Jimmy Miller, who had worked with the Rolling Stones, and Neil Richmond. I love the production on this one. This one and Bomber are both produced by Jimmy Miller, so they're sonically very similar. I always thought the production was great on this. I pretty much love every song on this record. The title track, Overkill, is fantastic with the double bass drumming there. Filthy talks about how he didn't want to just add double bass drums for the look of it. He wanted to actually use them, so he got these 2 bass drums, practiced it and everything. And so love that. Love the false kind of start and stop at the end of the song. Stay Clean, one of my favorite Motorhead songs. Love Lemmy's bass solo in that. I Won't Pay Your Price, great, super catchy. I'll Be Your Sister, Capricorn. Always did Capricorn, has kind of a little bit of a trippy, spacey feel to it. No Class. Damage Case, love that song. I love the way in Damage Case, and I think it's the last verse where the riff sort of drops down, and it's the same riff, but it's like dropped down a little bit lower, and it's just, love it. Metropolis, very cool. Kind of like Capricorn, and has that same kind of trippy vibe to it. All right, now also in 1979, this is incredible, right? They're releasing 2 albums in 1 year. They released Bomber. This is also produced by Jimmy Miller, so it has the same kind of sonic feel to it as does Overkill. This would create the famous airplane stage prop that I've got my Anya makes a guest appearance here. It created the stage prop of the bomber airplane that they would use for years and would be on the cover of the No Sleep Till Hammersmith album. Step Down has Fast Eddie Clarke on vocals. I've got to be honest, this one is not my favorite Motorhead record. The songs that I like on it, I really like, but there's some songs that just kind of don't get off the ground for me, that just don't quite have the energy. I think Motorhead's Money Zone is when they're doing those fast, aggressive things. But there are some great songs on here. Dead Men Tell No Tales is great. Lawman is a little bit laid back. It works for me, though. Stone Dead Forever, super cool, and probably my favorite song on here, the title track, Bomber. Okay, now, in the same year here, we get On Parole, which is United realizing Motorhead is getting popular, trying to capitalize on it. This was the first album that they recorded that United scrap didn't want to release. So this is kind of the first Motorhead record. They would re-record all these songs on the self-titled Motorhead album. The band would not approve of this. I understand why. The CD remasters have cleaned this up a little bit, but my vinyl version of it does not sound very good. The guitars don't have any bite and heft to them. This is Larry Wallace on guitar. It features Lucas Fox on one song, Lost Johnny, but it just doesn't work. The guitars don't have the aggression. The band doesn't have the Motorhead sound that we've come to know and love here. So I understand why the band disowns this. And 3 albums in 1 year is just oversaturation. It's just a cash grab. Okay, if these songs appear years later as CD bonus tracks or something, but as a standalone album, I feel bad for somebody that maybe hears Motorhead, you know, Ace of Spades or something, and then they go and they buy that and they're thinking, what is this? Okay, 1980, we land at their most popular album, the classic Motorhead album, Ace of Spades. Vic Mail produced this, and it really captures, for me, the Motorhead live sound. Interesting enough, this was taking a picture somewhere in London, and they had to airbrush in the sky, in the blue sky there, because, you know, of course, it's cloudy in London. I always preferred the production on Bomber and Overkill because it has a little more stereo spread to it. Here, all the instruments are lined up right in the middle, but it does really capture the live sort of raw energy of Motorhead, and it is just filled with classic songs. Ace of Spades, Motorhead's calling card, pun intended, if you will. Lemmy's bass intro there, totally legendary. Love You Like a Reptile, Shoot You in the Back, Western movies, love it. Fast and Loose is cool. I always dug We Are the Road Crew. The Chase is better than the Catch, and The Hammer is this fast, aggressive one. So great album, signature Motorhead record. Okay, Iron Fist, 1982. I've always had a soft spot for this record because I remember getting it as a kid. You know, I thought the cover was super cool and the back cover. And this is produced by Fast Eddie. The band sort of regrets him producing it, but I think the production on it is really good. Side 2 does sort of run out of gas a little bit, and the band does mention that they feel like some of the songs were a little, you know, not completely finished, but I've always dug this record. It's the last of the classic era, Fast Eddie, Filthy, and Lemmy. Clark would end up leaving early into this tour, and would move on to the next record, but with Brian Robertson replacing him from Thin Lizzy. But Iron Fist is one of my favorite Motorhead songs. I love that song. I think it's just so cool. The chorus on it is great. Heart of Stone is cool. I'm the Doctor. I've always liked that. Go to Hell. And I've always really dug America, through that sort of start-stop riff, and Lemmy's lyrics and his melody line, and that I think are really cool. Now we land at Another Perfect Day in '83. This is the last on Bronze Records who Motorhead would take to court and eventually win. It's the only album, as I mentioned, Fast Eddie leaves very early in the tour. Brian Robo Robertson comes in on guitar, formerly of Thin Lizzy, gives the band maybe a little bit of a different sound. Produced by Tony Platt, who had worked with AC/DC and I believe Cheap Trick also. Certainly no Motorhead records are slick or anything, but this one is a little bit more produced than the albums before this. The US version has a different song order. Interestingly, my vinyl, the order of the songs on the back and on the label don't match the songs on the record, and whoever owned it before me, the lyric sleeve, they wrote the numbers of the order of the songs, and so thank you, whoever that person is. Back at the Funny Farm is a fun one. Shine is catchy. Dancing on Your Grave is a cool one. One Track Mind and Rocket are some of my favorites from this one. Now, '86, Orgasmatron. We had a 3-year hiatus between Another Perfect Day and Orgasmatron, which 3 years at this point in time is an eternity for a band to wait to put a record out. It's the first to feature 2 guitars in the band, with Phil Campbell and Wurzel on guitar. First full album to feature Pete Gill on drums, and it's the first on the GWR label, which was created by Motorhead and their management. It's produced by Bill Laswell. I think it works. Maybe at times it's not as strong as maybe I would like it to be, but there are some great songs on here. Death Forever is great. I love the chorus in that song. I've always dug The Claw, very kind of thrash metal like. Built for Speed is really cool. Dr. Rock is another one. We Ain't Talking Dr. Spock. That's a great line. All right, and then to round out the 80s, 77 to 87, and the 80s for Motorhead, we get Rock and Roll. It's the last studio album of the 80s. Filthy Animal comes back on drums. We still got Wurzel and Phil Campbell on guitar. Produced by Motorhead and Guy Bidman. It's got a thick, full, aggressive sound, although maybe at times it's a tad bit fatiguing on the ears, but hey, this is Motorhead and we want everything louder than everything else. Eat the Rich was written for a movie of the same name and then gets used here. Stone Deaf Forever ends with this funny spoken word thing, dialogue thing from Monty Python's Michael Palin. It's listed as Blessing on the CD, but here it just comes at the end of side 1. Favorite songs on this, the title track, Rock and Roll. Eat the Rich, I think is great. Really cool, catchy chorus. I've always really liked The Wolf, that howling sound at the beginning, and it's a fast, thrashy vibe. And I dig All For You. It's a very catchy, melodic chorus. I think Lemmy is an underrated songwriter. He would go on to help write songs with Ozzy on No More Tears and work with other various people. And Lemmy is just a fantastic songwriter, and I think this is a great example of a melodic song. Should have probably been a radio hit for the band. All right, before I rank them, I'm going to give a shout out to the No Remorse compilation album that came out in '84, because there were 4 studio new songs that they wrote for that I think are fantastic. Kill by Death, Snaggletooth, Steal Your Face, and Locomotive are just great songs. Okay, let's see my ranking here of the records. My last place we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 records. At number 9 for me is On Parole. Shouldn't have been released as a proper Motorhead album. The band didn't want it to be released. Just lacks any kind of punch and aggression in the guitars and the production and stuff like that. All right, number 8 is for me Another Perfect Day. Number 7 is Rock and Roll. Number 6, this may be my first controversial pick, is Bomber. A lot of people would probably have this way higher on their list, but like I said, just love the production on it. The songs I like on it I really love, but some of the other songs just don't quite get off the ground for me. Orgasmatron, I think this is a really strong record with a lot of really cool songs on it. We are at number 4. Always had a soft spot for Iron Fist, like I mentioned, so that comes in at number 4 for me. I dig the raw, on the floor, live, underproduced nature of the first record, and I think there's a lot of great songs on it, so that there's just a certain charm to that record, so it comes in at number 3 for me. All right, kind of maybe controversial, Ace of Spades is number 2. It's a 10 out of 10 record, but number 1 for me is Overkill, because I just love the production. I love every song on this. Just love it. 10 out of 10. All right, there you go. Motorhead 77 to 87. Let me know what you think of my ranking of the albums. What are some of your favorite songs? What do you think of this period of Motorhead? What do you guys think of the On Parole record? Let me know in the comments down below. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.